Warrior Cats should reboot. Kind of. So Warrior Cats, as a series, has been going on for basically 20 years at this point. Not even basically, just full on over 20 years. And with the 9th arc set to premiere this January, a bit of a break from tradition, but alright, that's still a lot, like 9 arcs, 8 of which have been following one continuous story. I mean, the first 4 arcs were just one generation after another, followed by a brief break with Dawn of the Clans, and then followed by another, soon-to-be 4 arcs, of just in the same continuity, which is kind of a lot, and, well, it's honestly kind of tiring. I mean, considering the fact that a lot of characters from the first arc are technically still alive after 20 years, considering how much time has passed, it's kind of a problem. And the problem is so much that it's just kind of boring. You know, seeing the same characters over and over again boiled down to their most basic qualities, to the point where they're not even the same character anymore. Yeah, it's kind of exhausting. Which is why Warrior Cats needs to reboot. Although, when I say reboot, I don't mean full-on, from the ground out reboot, like you do the first arc over again. When I mean reboot, I mean a sort of revival of sorts. Now, one thing I've been championing, and that a lot of people have been championing for a while, is another Dawn the Clan-like series. You know, set during a different point in the Warrior Cats timeline, completely disconnected from everything. I mean, the timeline between the Dawn of Clans era and the original series era, or the Prophecies Begins, is so vast. I mean, we literally do not know. I mean, it has to be long enough that Sky Clan has to have left the clans and for everyone to forget about it. So, theoretically, it could be years, decades. Hell, it could be 100 years for all we know. There was so much time there, so much raw potential for a new series to take hold. And again, this wouldn't be discrediting the current run. It would more so be taking a break, much like Dawn of the Clans. We would take a nice little break, you know, maybe get a super edition or two to kind of fill in the gaps. You know, like kind of like Bramble Claw's Storm was. Regardless of quality, it did keep us in tune with what was going on in the main series, at least the era that we were familiar with, before, you know, Arc 6 came out. Again, disregarding quality. And, you know, there's a lot of exciting possibilities that could be brought from here. You know, we could have new characters that we have never met. You know, new personalities. You know, you could get very experimental with sort of stuff. I mean, think about it. A lot of what this main series has been focused on is, like, familial ties. I mean, almost every single arc, we've had someone related to Firestar. The only, again, exception being Dawn of the Clans. Because, well, you know, it was a prequel. But literally, every arc, we've had someone related to Firestar in some way. Or it's just him straight up as the protagonist. And, yeah, that's cool and all. Firestar is a cool character. But it's just kind of getting exhausting. Especially with this most recent arc, which, while I have not read, I have seen a lot of people kind of displeased with how Nightheart was compared to Firestar, seemingly for no reason, and the fact they didn't really go as far as they could have with it. Again, this is mostly from a reader of that arc's perspective, but you kind of see the problem here. We keep perpetuating this idea of it being connected with Firestar, when in actuality, he's been dead for over a decade at this point, and we're still harping on his legacy. Not to discredit him, but it just kind of feels like we need something new. We need something fresh. We need to take a breather from the Firestar dynasty. I mean, Moonpaw, if I remember correctly, is distantly related to him, on top of the fact that Tawny Pelt and Leafstar have massive connections to Firestar as a character. So his legacy is still going to be persistent in this most recent arc. I mean, reading the prologue, literally 20 minutes ago, I read the prologue of the first book of the Elder's Quest, because it's on the website now, you can go read it if you want, and Firestar is there, and Leafpool. So, he's still gonna be present. But imagine, a brand new arc, no restraints, all these possibilities, new characters, new backstories, new possibilities. We could finally get a Wind Clan protagonist. We are 20 years in, and we have not got a single main series Wind Clan protagonist. We've had River Clan. You know, we had Stormfur, we had Feathertail, and most recently we had Frostpaw. Oh, I'm not going to say her warrior name because it's still rather fresh. But never have we got a Wind Clan protagonist. Ever. Just not a single one. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. On top of the fact that WinClan never got a novella, is tied, I believe, well, not tied. It's tied with, I believe, RiverClan for the amount of super editions it got. I think SkyClan technically has a one more. Does it? Hold on, let me move my shelf. Yeah, SkyClan has a little bit less, but WinClan is kind of not really, utilized as much, especially considering the fact that out of all the WinClan graphic novels, only one is kind of generally accepted as being good. The others are just ranging from bad to okay to, divisive. Make of that what you will. But the fact that WinClan has been disproportionately not utilized. And I'm not counting Greywing, because naming WinClan in your last 3 pages of your book before you die doesn't really count. Which is also the same thing for all of Dawn of the Clans. I'm not counting any of them as protagonists, even if they're founders. But think about it. All of these exciting possibilities, new setting, new characters, from the ground up. We could follow a brand new Apprentice Quest storyline in this, new era, without any restraints, anything beholden. And I'm repeating myself, and you know me, I don't write scripts for this, which is going to be different from next video, hopefully. But yeah, and again, we get new characters. We don't have any connections to other people. We get new characters, new struggles, they're not beholden to live up to some sort of, a paragon, apparently. People view Firestar as a paragon. People have to look up to it, like with Nightheart. They get to have their own struggles, their own victories, their own defeats, their own kind of things they aspire to be without any sort of connection to anyone's legacy. I mean, you technically could go that way with a story, but you'll be new and fresh and new stories. And, new dynamics, because a lot of what the main series is, the dynamics between characters and relationships. Obviously, a lot of the protagonists' relations to Firestar, they're always, saying, oh yeah, you're related to Firestar, obviously you would act like this. But now they wouldn't be beholden to that. If they took action like a Firestar, they wouldn't be called a Firestar. They would be, their own person. And that's one of the reasons I think that Dawn of the Clans was successful and is constantly being pushed as a great series. It was new, original, experimental. I mean, just the way they handled their protagonists. I mean, Clear Sky was our first full-on antagonist-protagonist. He was straight up evil in the first book, where he was a POV. And yes, Ivypool was technically on the bad guy side for a little while, but not to the point that Clear Sky was. He full-on murders people. No remorse murders people. He only gets remorse when he's told off. The only reason Ivypool does kill people, she kills Ampelt, but that's immediately she knows it's wrong, but she doesn't really have a choice. Clear Sky full-on murders people, and doesn't have any remorse until his dead sister and dead wife kind of tell him off. Which is fair, that whole thing with Clear Sky was dumb. But again, full-on villains as protagonists in a main series, something that we rarely get. We rarely get villains as POVs, and most of the time when we do, it either slightly makes them more sympathetic, or drastically makes them just worse. I'm not gonna get into my thoughts on some of the other villain POVs. Maple Shades is fine. Tiger Claws is fine. It's kind of pointless. Scourge is alright, but at this point, anything for Scourge would be fine. And then that's it. We don't have a lot of villains as a POV. And yeah, they try to do the whole BS redemption arc with Clear Sky, but the point is, they did something that no one done before. They also killed the protagonist. We had never had that in the main series up until that point. And yeah, it was a little melodramatic, and especially if you know the history behind Dawn of the Clans, you kind of see it coming. But still, that was a first. Our first villain POV, our first character death. That's significant. And with a revival of sorts in a new time, a new era with new characters, you can get weird with it. You can do experiments. And obviously with the most recent books, Ivypool's Heart, the most recent arc, they have been experimenting with their formats, with how they kind of portray series. Even as far back as Grey Stripes' Vow, that was a whole new format that I honestly think they should try again. Just because, I think it worked. And it'd be interesting to see what else you could do with the format. So they have been experimenting, but like not as big of a scale as Dawn of the Clans. So if you did a new series, not beholden to the main, continuity, you can do weird stuff. And you can then apply it to the main series. Like, what works, you apply it. What didn't work, you leave it. Dawn of the Clans had this thing where, like, they slowly added new POVs. And that hasn't really happened before. They kind of scrapped that, but not really. They did in Arc 6, which I don't think was a good idea, but that's a different point. And not to diss Arc 9, but one of the benefits of doing a new revival is you are not required to do 3 protagonists. They probably would do it anyway, but I really think, they should do it. And Arc 9 looks interesting. I'm going to read it when it launches, but it definitely seems like, at least from the prologue I've read, they're retreading so much ground. So spoilers for, like, the Arc 9 prologue. They released the prologue in the first 3 chapters. I'm going to talk about it. So the prologue, it's so stupid. They literally said, we're going to lose our connection to talk with the lake cats again. And I'm just kind of like, why? Didn't we just do this? Like, why? Why are we doing this? And then you have, Tawny, Pell, and Leaf Pool. They're very reminiscent about stuff. They're old. I guess you can get away with it. And then, like, Moon Kit or Moonpaw, she has this, like, voice in her head, and it's like, this is just Ashfur again. It's just Ashfur again. Who knows? They could do something unique with it. But so far, it just looks like they're retreading old ground, and it's annoying. Maybe they're supposed to, like, lull us in with a false sense of security, but this is not a great first impression. And if I had the choice between a Dawn of the Clans alike series, new time, new era, new characters, new dynamics, new experimental stories to tell that aren't beholden on the tropes of the past, compared to Arc 9, which I'm still optimistic about, but it's not presenting itself very well, I'd choose the revival. And that could be also a good way to bring in new readers. Think about it. Dawn of the Clans is very approachable. Even though you need some context, you can have a Warrior Cats fan who has not read any of their books read it, and a revival could do that. Because Warrior Cats is so complicated now, and even though they try really hard, you need context. I mean, Ivy Pool's heart, to fully understand Ivy Pool's heart, you need 17 books of context. 17 books of context. That is ridiculous. With a sort of soft reboot, a revival, you wouldn't need context. You need a basic understanding, which most fans have, but that could be a way you could easily garner in new fans who don't have to, like, read all this lore and understand the all complicated timeline, which is a whole different discussion. And kind of the antithesis, this is a ramble, this is very incoherent. I haven't done a video in like a month, and it shows, but I think my ultimate, like, point is, I want a revival. Other people do too. I've talked to people about this, where a Dawn of the Clan-alike series is where, new, all this kind of, just something new. No retreads, no reimaginings, no just the same kind of general premise over and over again. I want something new, something exciting. And maybe Arc 9 will do that, but maybe it won't. And as much as I hoped that Arc 9 would be a revival of sorts, here's hoping that Arc 10 will be. But yeah. Thank you all so much for watching. Sorry this video was very delayed and was presented in this way. But yeah. So I hope you all have a nice day, and I'll see you all next time. In fact, here's a little sneak preview of my next video.